So I want to talk about something that I actually lived, not researched about, from comfortable distance, because my personal record here is moving somewhere with only $20 in my pocket and nowhere to sleep. I was 17 and I really needed to leave home, but I didn't have a picture of myself living in my home country. So I left with something that barely qualified as a plan. It did work out at the end because somehow it always did in my delusional universe. But it worked out in a very expensive way. And by expensive, I don't mean monetarily expensive, because in our world we have a lot of different currencies. In my case, it was a lot of physical and mental health. And I only figured out the right order of doing things when you're trying to move to another country with a very low budget and a very short amount of time. I figured it out only when I already did it in the wrong order. So today I'm gonna give you the right order of moving from, oh my god, I want to move ASAP, but I'm broke and young and no experience, to, oh, okay, it's actually doable, I'm moving tomorrow. So these are 7 different ways to move out of your country when you're young and broke. I'm going to talk about how much each way would cost you if I had 30 days and very low budget. But before any of this, there's one thing that can delete this entire video for some of you, and I would be very happy for you if it actually applies, and it is citizenship by descent. A lot of people ignore it or disregard it. You don't think it's useful in your context, regardless if your grandparent, or in some countries great-grandparent, was born in Italy, Ireland, Poland, Romania, and a few others, you might be already entitled to an EU passport. That's no visa, no mechanism, no cash flow, and full work rights for the entire EU permanently. It does take months or maybe years for some people, but it doesn't take you anything, doesn't cost anything for you to just start it in parallel with whatever you're doing right now. Time will pass anyway. And if it does land, it changes the entire trajectory of your move abroad. I'm not gonna go too deep into this. I do want to make another video on citizenships, but for now, go check your ancestry, honestly. Okay, finally, let's talk about 7 mechanisms how you can move abroad within a very short period of time and with almost no money. Number 1 is working holiday visas. Over 50 countries run with bilateral agreements. Just from the top of my head, Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, the UK, Canada, Korea, and our favorite Japan. They do it. Generally, you need to be from 18 to 30, in some cases 35. Full working rights, and most critically, you don't need a job offer before you enter the country. If your passport qualifies, which is good for you because mine doesn't, it's the most flexible way into the country. And maybe the most financially sustainable one. Number 2, this is the one that everyone skips and misses out. These are cheap or funded language courses. When I'm saying that there is money in languages, that's what I mean. The amount of government money sitting in these language programs, because they're using it as their soft power tool, it is fascinating when you start looking at it. German universities don't charge any tuition, but on top of that, there are DAAD scholarships that can fund your language studying. But one of my favorite uses of soft power in the realm of language learning is Chinese government scholarship that can fund your language learning in 100 different universities across China. While Taiwanese government decided to actually pay you a stipend of $900 a month so you come to Taiwan and study Mandarin there. And I recently written a post for my Substack about the scholarship. Go check it out. I broke down all the costs and differences and deadlines, because it can get tricky with the scholarships. You do need to understand how it works. Something that really bothers me about language studying abroad, people routinely spend from $2,000 to $6,000 for a language program. But so many language programs have a better equivalent that is fully or partially funded, and it's usually sitting somewhere one search away. I do see how hidden this information is, or it's not hidden, but it might be confusing, so you just don't want to figure this out, but it might cost you, once again, like from $2,000 to $6,000. But in our case, when we're young and broke, what we do have is time. So let's do better research. Number 3 is not for everyone, but I did want to mention it, especially in the gig economy and the content economy that's moving online, already moved. Hello. It is digital nomad visa. So these do need an existing source of income online. While it's not for everyone who is watching, I do think it's more accessible than you think it is if you still don't have an online gig. On top of it, the money floor, the requirement for a digital nomad visa in terms of your monthly income is much lower than you would expect. It depends on the country. But Georgia, for example, doesn't even have a threshold, while Colombia's digital nomad visa requires you to have a remote income that starts at the minimum of $900. If you're already doing little gigs online, tutoring online, providing services here and there, you can double down, and this visa, depending on the country, can be easily within your reach. You just once again haven't checked it yet. That's why I'm here to check for you. Number 4 is the one that I would push hardest if your biggest constraint is the money, and it's au pair placements. Room, board, and the stipend for about 25 hours of childcare. And I know this program runs officially, semi-officially in terms of the visa acquisition in 20 plus countries. And a handful of European countries, Luxembourg, Norway, Denmark, and others, they run it as a cultural exchange. This is one of the only mechanisms that cover all of your basic needs from day one. Number 5 is structured teaching, or ALT dispatch placements. ALT is Assistant Language Teacher. These programs will sponsor your visa, sometimes will cover your flights and housing, but these programs are so diverse I cannot generalize here. It really depends on the program and the country and the government and so on. And they hire all year round most of the time. Yes, they have like high peak seasons, but you don't need to wait for the specific window in the year. I would say this one is slower in terms of earnings because it takes time for them to process your visa and actually move you there, but it's the most stable way among all the mechanisms that I'm describing today. Number 6 is short-term volunteering and exchange programs. I'm talking specifically about ISEC. They run 6 to 8 weeks placements across 125 countries for 18 to 30 years old, very small fee, and accommodation is included most of the time. And the short period of time is cool for you if you don't want to like fully move, but you want to experience life abroad and maybe check out the country where you would volunteer with the program. I assume they chose this timeline of 6 to 8 weeks because of bureaucratic reasons. It's just easier with the visa processes. And I would say it's one of the fastest ways to just get out of the country. Last one, guys, 7 is something that I'm a huge fan of, and I've been doing it for the past 6 years. I've done 15 plus experiences like this, and it's work exchange through a bunch of different platforms for that. There's so many out there, but the ones I'm usually using are Worldpackers and Workaway. Some work exchange platforms are completely free, some of them you do need to pay a little bit. I would say the paid ones, they kind of give you a sense of security a bit because we do check the hosts, and it's the lowest barrier to entry on the entire list. You don't have to see these mechanisms as separate, you actually can combine them, mix and match them. Some of them are very flexible, some of them are low commitment, some of them are high commitment. So something that I've been doing for the past, once again, 6 years is using them interchangeably in a different order. Depending on the season of my life and what I wanted to do with myself in that specific period. Now, here's the part that matters more than the 7 mechanisms that I just described. And it is the thing that I got wrong when I was 17 and I kept getting wrong years after. Most people don't fail because of the money. Most of us fail because we put too much energy and effort into the wrong thing, such as overthinking and overplanning the living part instead of the lending part, and it can cost you a lot. Again, there are different currencies out there, and if the 2 weeks in a new country don't eat out the money, because you might not have them, they will eat something else, like your health, which we don't want. So here's a list of 4 rules I wish I followed when I was 17. Number 1, pick the mechanism, not the country. Sounds counterintuitive for a lot of people, but you cannot start your move abroad with, I want to move to country X. You gotta start with, here's how I'm actually allowed into place X, into the country X, and how much it would cost. And the list of countries naturally falls out of it. 2, your cash flow is a completely different number depending on the mechanism that you've chosen as step number 1. Because au pair placement would require a completely different cash flow compared to working holiday visa, for example. You might think that rule number 3 is common sense, but it wasn't for me. But please take care of your first night. Like minimum first night, you have to book something beforehand. That's the whole rule. It might end up being the biggest predictor of you having the best month of your life, or it might be a month of an anxiety spiral Rule number 4 is the rule that I don't hear anyone talking about, is reversibility test. The move I would do now is the one that I can undo. No, we're not burning bridges here. Flight home that I could still afford. No signed 1-year lease. Nothing burned behind me. And I wouldn't call it not being brave enough, but I think sometimes it's exactly what makes the leap possible. Understanding that everything is reversible, and I do see a lot of self-care in it. As you're feeling the new ground, it's always nice to have something to lean against, even if it's just mental and hypothetical. And all the sequences week by week, all the links that you need, and even templates of messages that you can send to your host that actually would get you the reply back, all of it is in my Substack from this week. You can find it in the link below. And if you're in a situation where you just want to get out, but you don't know where to start, something is stopping you, I'd love to hear more about that. Leave a comment below. And most of the time, the answer is much more simpler than it seems from the inside. Alright, Global Citizen, if you found this video useful, don't forget to put a thumbs up and subscribe. It helps me a lot to find other global citizens and help them to get out there. All right, see you somewhere in the world. Bye.